Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion, it's not a straightforward review, it's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey, this is Lisa, and if you want to catch up with me on Twitter, you can find me at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Instagram, I Love That Movie Podcast, and we have a Patreon. The show is always free, but if you want to support us on there, you can. That's at patreon.com/I Love That Movie. Basically, if you sign up, you get a bonus episode every week of my weekly roundup, and also we cover some stuff like WandaVision, Loki, The Mandalorian. Now we're covering Marvel What If, and I have guests on there too. It's just everything that doesn't fall under the movie category will be on my Patreon. And I do want to take a moment to thank my top patrons, and they are Chris Balga, Jeff Woodman, Philip Barker, and Michael Cross. Thank you guys so much for keeping the lights on. And if you like what you hear today, please subscribe and rate the show. It does help new listeners find us. I've got a returning guest with me here today. I've got Ty Larson. Say hi, Ty.
Hi, Ty.
Hey, and our last episode that we did, it was
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls. Okay, I
Yes.
almost said the movie that I also think of when I think of Mean Girls, which is Drop Dead Gorgeous, but
Ugh,
that predates it. And we talked a little bit about how there's some crossover with that. We
yes.
did an episode on that as well, but that episode I did with Mitch.
Yes.
Um, yes, great movies, great episodes. Go listen to those. But Ty, if people haven't heard you on the podcast before, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Sure. My name is Ty Larson. I live here in Dallas. I work as a graphic designer. I also do drag every now and then as Deb Auchery of the House Divine. Um, yeah, that's about it. Just big o nerd.
You're in good company. I'm a nerd as well, as you know.
Heck yeah.
Um, yes. And so last time we talked about Mean Girls. This time you selected a different film. And my guest always picks the movie. What movie did you choose to talk about today?
So I decided we'd go like in a whole different direction and do Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yes. Okay. So this came out in 1968, and I could not decide up until I watched it if I had seen it before. I remember vividly seeing some of the musical numbers. I remember seeing the cover, but I watched it all the way through, and I don't think I'd seen this before.
Are you serious? How fun is that? You got to like really watch it for the first time. That's kind of cool.
I think when you said this movie, my brain inserted Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
Okay.
And then when I went to look it up, I was like, different movie.
Okay, like really funny
And I was like,
story. I was actually trying to watch a movie with a friend the other night and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was on the oh, what was it? The Turner Classic Movie app. And I just my Roku did not want to play it. So we ended up
oh
watching
no.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks instead because it seemed like an appropriate substitute.
Yeah, I don't know why they have the same I mean, the closest vibe it probably has is, Mary Poppins,
Mhm.
but I mean, it really I don't know, that jumped into my brain. Something about the British kids, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was like I thought of that, and then when I watched it, I thought, "I have not seen this before." Which, yeah, I really did enjoy it. It was different from Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks
Hmm.
in
Very.
terms of plot, but I liked it. When did you first see this?
Oh my goodness. So my mom used to go out and just she would see like the new VHS movie on sale and would just pick it up. I don't remember the first time I watched it as a kid, but my sister and I used to watch it Saturdays. What we would do is we would go into my room and like push the mattress part way off the box spring, and it would smush into my dresser and make like a little kind of like lean to, and we'd squeeze ourselves between the mattress and the box spring and pull the sheet down so it was kind of like a little cave, and we would watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Alice in Wonderland, Jumanji, Kiki's Delivery Service, like movies like that, and eat like an entire box of dry breakfast cereal. That was our Saturday mornings.
Well, that is extremely precious. I love that. That is so cute. I know for sure, like, I have a close friend. I didn't text her yet. I need to text her. I text her all the time about random movies when we're covering them because I'm like, wait a minute, I know I watched this at your house. And I don't know that I watched this at her house because I couldn't remember it, but I feel like she really liked it. And that's the only tenuous, I guess, connection I have to it. I don't have a good story, but that is so sweet. I love that that was like part of your rotation.
Yeah, no,
That's so
it was a
great.
lot of fun. We loved the music, and like the whole inventor thing was fun because we both were like super into science. Um and then just like the fantasy sequence, which is pretty much, like the last most of the last part of the movie, was
Yeah.
just a lot of fun. Um
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, no, it was great. Like and just the names are wonderful. I mean, it's based on an oh goodness, I lost the name. Is it Ian Fleming?
Yes.
Yes.
James Bond.
So
Yeah.
it's
Love
based on
James
an
Bond films.
Ian Fleming novel. I believe he wrote it not too long before he passed away. I think he was recovering from a heart attack, and his wife took away his typewriter to try and keep him from working. So he wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in longhand, like wrote it out
Wow.
with pen, and it was based on stories he used to tell his kids. Um, and it was just kind of a fun little project he did before he passed away, while he was kind of bedridden. Um, but yeah, it's the same guy who did James Bond, and it was actually produced and directed by like the same teams that did the James Bond films at the time. Um,
Yeah, it's really wild, but I feel like you can see some of that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but you could see some of those connections in it, I feel like.
you can, and it's who God, what's the name? Is it Robert or Ronald Dahl?
Ronald Dahl,
Ronald
yeah.
Dahl. Ronald Dahl was the one who adapted the screenplay, um, which is actually where we get like the whole candy factory, and everything like
Mhm.
that. So like, it's so interesting how all of these things kind of smushed together to make this movie. Um, and again, there's like all the connections to Mary Poppins as well. Like United Artists really
Mhm.
wanted to clone Mary Poppins' success and dumped
I
so much money into this movie. Like this was a huge budgeted movie.
You can tell. I mean, and, it's interesting you say that because I grew up thinking that this was a Disney film,
Hmm.
and, up until, like, I went to look for it, I assumed it was gonna be on Disney Plus. I literally had no idea about the history of this movie, and so, yeah, you can really feel that Disney influence in the music for sure, and in the look of the film. I think, even if you didn't enjoy the film, it is beautiful to look at. Not saying I didn't, but if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to deny the fact that you can see like beautiful sets and beautiful costumes.
Hmm.
You can definitely see all that in there. It just doesn't have that animation like Mary Poppins did. It's like
Yeah.
all physically built sets. Um, but before we go too much further, I do want to warn everybody that we are going to talk spoilers. So if you haven't seen this movie, I suggest going and watching it, and then you can come back. But here is the synopsis for the film. While truant from school, young siblings Jeremy and Jemima meet the beautiful Truly Scrumptious, who falls for their widowed father, Karaticus Potts and his various oddball inventions, including the family's noisily rebuilt car, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. One day at the beach, Karaticus tells Truly and the children a fanciful tale about the villain Baron Bombburst and his evil designs on the Potts family car. And that's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
No, it's
But we'll dive in.
the plot is very thin. But
I was like, man, so much is happening in this movie,
yeah,
though, for that simple plot.
they
Yeah. I mean,
literally just they cram so much into it, but it's a lot of fun. And actually, what you were saying, it sounds like a Disney musical. It's because they got the Sherman Brothers to compose it. So the Sherman Brothers had
yes.
just done the music for Mary Poppins. Um, I think they did music for a couple of the like rides at Disney, like It's a Small World, that was written by the Sherman Brothers. They've done
Oh,
some
okay, okay.
really
I can
famous
hear that
Disney
influence.
tunes. So, I mean, they really wanted this to be a Disney movie that wasn't a Disney movie. Um,
Yeah, I get some sort of, I don't know, sick pleasure every time people escape Disney and work on something else, even though I like Disney. And
yeah,
I did read this was their first non-Disney film to like feature their songs at all. So
yeah,
they had pretty much had them under lock and key somehow, and they got away to do this movie.
they got away
Um,
from this one and then like went right back to Disney.
yeah, well, it pays really well, I'm
Exactly.
sure. That was one of my quick facts. The other one that I had was that while this is not a financial failure, it did get generally negative reviews and lost money at the box office.
It did, which is weird. Like, I think people look back on it much more fondly than it was received when it came out. Um, and a lot of the reviews, I think, just kind of skewered it because they said that there was nothing interesting in it for adults. Um,
Interesting. I did see a review from, I think it was Ebert, and he said that it was really good and great for children, which I
yeah,
think is like a better way to, compare films instead of being like, I mean, because kids are ultimately going to be the ones that watch it and enjoy it.
yeah. But I mean, there's some adult stuff in there too, like things I didn't catch as a kid, which was like grandpa wasn't really traveling and he wasn't really going to his laboratory. He was going to the outhouse. Like
Yeah.
I that flew right over my head as a kid. And then just like the sexy little number that the Baroness is wearing.
That part shocked me. I was
What
like,
like
"Whoa."
so what's funny, I think when they did the actual like musical version of this that played at like Broadway and West End, they actually toned that down. Like the Baron wasn't always trying to kill the Baroness. So this is like the one time when like the movie is more violent than the Broadway show. But no,
Yeah.
like just like as a kid watching the Baron like pulling his gun out as like the Baroness is floating up there using her dress as a parachute and like shooting at her, you're just kind of like, haha, that's funny. And then you watch it as an adult and you're like, wow, they need therapy.
You're like, "That's intense."
It's really
He's telling this
intense.
story to children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had kind of mentioned this already, but the screenplay was written by Ronald Dahl,
Hmm.
who had just recently written the screenplay for You Only Live Twice, which was like the first Bond film actually to deviate from Fleming's book. So it's kind of interesting that he ended up doing this,
Yeah.
and he added a lot of stuff to it, like um, I think the Chitty story didn't have like the story of Bulgaria and things like that, and like some of the names too, like Truly Scrumptious and things like that. They sound kind of like Bond names.
Oh,
I
truly
noticed, like,
scrumptious sounds like that's a spot on Bond name. I had
yeah,
no
it's like,
idea that he had
yeah, like
added that.
Honey Rider and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when I thought about her name, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then when I read this background, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And wasn't there kind of some bad blood between Ronald and Ken Hughes, where he was saying like the screenplay wasn't good, and he was kind of like pushed him out of the way, but then I mean, ultimately, all the stuff that he put in the screenplay is what they used in the movie,
So
which
unfortunately,
happens
like
sometimes.
Ken Hughes just hated this entire project. He didn't like the movie that he made. He had never worked with kids before and didn't know how to work with kids. Um, so it was like Dick Van Dyke, Sally Ann Howes, Jeffrey or Lionel Jeffries, and Benny Hill were like entertaining the kids in between scenes and like helping direct them because he didn't know how. He'd never worked with kids before.
Yeah, it said he didn't like them, and I thought that's funny. That's kind of like in the movie, that guy that doesn't like kids. I
Yeah.
guess the Baron. It's life imitating art, I guess. Yeah, that Benny Hill connection was really interesting to me. I was like, oh, but I guess, it's like we forget when all these people were contemporaries,
Mhm.
and they kind of become, I don't know, almost like larger than life. But I thought that was interesting too.
And I think Dick Van Dyke even brought like Benny Hill in as a writer. Like I think he was going to do dialogue cleanup, and then they ended up giving him a role.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Love
I
when that
like
happens.
how random is that? It's just it has such a
Yeah, like when I
cool
look through these
cast.
names, I don't think Benny Hill right off the
Yeah,
top of my head, so that was cool.
yeah. And like Sally Ann Howes, I think she was definitely not first choice. They really wanted Julie Andrews for this. They wanted to team up Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews again. But Julie Andrews turned the role down because it was too much like Mary Poppins. So they literally got Sally because they saw that she took over for My Fair Lady after Julie Andrews had left the role in the West End. So
Mm.
they
I
got
really
somebody
liked her in
who's
this movie.
she was so good. Like this was supposed to kind of revitalize her career. She had done television and a few films, and then it kind of slowed down, and she took this thinking this is going to catapult me and restart my career, and it didn't.
Uh,
It's
so sad. There's so many talented people that happens to.
and she's so pretty and she's got that gorgeous voice. I mean, I think my favorite song in the movie is what is it? Doll on a Box
Oh
or
yeah.
Doll on a Music Box. And she nailed that performance. So she got it right the first time. They shot it in one take.
Wow.
Yes.
There's a lot of impressive performances in this movie. Like a lot of the dance numbers too are like they look extremely difficult.
Yeah.
They're like really fun to watch, but I'm like, oh, poor Dick Van Dyke.
No, this is the movie where he found out he had arthritis
Ugh.
because he was getting really tired from his dance numbers and he went to the doctor and the doctor was like, "Oh, by the way, you've got arthritis."
And he was kind of young. Like I looked up their ages in the movie. Like I think he's like 41
Mhm.
at the time that this was made. But I guess all that dancing
Yeah.
takes a toll. I did read that he was like having trouble, like you're kind of saying, keeping up with the other dancers, and he's like, they're like half my age. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. God, but
And he's just so fun to watch.
he is, and the dance numbers are a lot of fun, like the Toot Sweets number at
Yes.
the Scrumptious Candy Factory. Just God, it was so much fun, and like the way they use the levels and like the carts. It was a
Hmm.
lot of fun to watch as a kid, even though it's like it's all kind of white and black and gray, and the only color is from the candy. It's still it was very like visually eye catching and appealing, like, and it's just so well choreographed. It's really cool. Like I love the musical numbers in this so much.
Yeah, I mean, in Mary Poppins, they rely a lot on. I mean, it's really cool, but like the animation
Hmm.
that's kind of blended in it is really fun to watch, and you're like, wow. But with this movie, it was like you're saying, it was like the sets and their costumes and the way they coordinated everything together just looked really cool. I was like, I don't know, that was what stood out to me some of the most. Was just how beautiful it looked.
Yeah, no, it's just gorgeous. You can tell they spent a lot of money on this. Like,
I know, that's so disappointing that it I feel like it's a little out of it's a little wacky. Like, it's wackier than Mary Poppins, and I
yeah,
think maybe that's what people had a hard time with. But I love the concept of, Dick Van Dyke as an inventor. I don't know, that made him, like, even more endearing if that's possible, but I just really loved it, and plus, weren't all the things that are built, like the car and a lot of the other inventions, the guy that made them, he did a lot of stuff on the Bond films too, right?
I don't know that he did stuff for other films. I know he was a, what do they call it? A kinetic artist. So he built like crazy machines.
Oh.
And they
Oh,
borrowed
nice.
some of his
Okay,
stuff
maybe that's what I'm
for the
thinking.
movie. Yeah.
I see, I see. Okay. Yeah, I thought he had worked on, one of the Bond films too, but I'm probably
He
misremembering that.
might
I know they
have.
made, like, 5 Chitty Chitty Bang Bang cars.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
there's
they
more than one
because I think
just because it has to do so many things.
there was like the flying car, the junkyard car, the boat car, and I think there were two that actually drove. And I think the
Yeah, because doesn't yeah, go ahead, sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think, and somebody had mentioned this in the, I think on Facebook, that I think Peter Jackson like bought one of the cars and has them and like drove it around, like possibly
Yes.
on the set of Lord of the Rings. I couldn't verify that for sure,
No,
but
he
that it's
did.
rumored to have at least.
He did buy it, and because it's old, it doesn't have a sound system. What they would do is they would take like a little Bluetooth speaker and they would have Chitty
Oh,
Chitty Bang Bang, the song, playing as they're driving around in the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang car.
that's so
Like,
cute. I feel like that's the mark of something that's like maybe I don't know how to put this, but like other artists can tell like how special this movie is. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like Peter Jackson being a big fan, that kind of made a lot of sense to me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, especially where Peter Jackson is really big on special effects, like, you could kind of see how this might be like a film he watched when he was younger and was like, I want to make movies like this. I want to be able to do this. Like, there's it's just it's cool stuff that they did.
It really is. Like I noticed that in the film, like they do a lot of really ambitious things that it seems like they wouldn't be able to do yet in during 1968. So that was pretty cool to
No, they
watch.
make it look really good, especially like the projection and the blue screen techniques look
Hmm.
really really clean, especially compared to like some of the Mary Poppins special effects from just a few years before. Like,
Yeah.
it looks really good. You can only kind of tell around like the kid's hair, and that's about it. That it's like a projection. They did a really good job, like with the lighting and the color and just blending everything together. It looks good.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think some of that has to do with John Steers, who is apparently called the Dean of Special Effects. He made like James Bond's Aston Martin DB5, Luke Skywalker's Land Speeder,
Oh,
the lightsabers. So, you know, having that guy on your film is going to make it look good, I'm sure.
that's so awesome.
I know. It's like, I was like, oh, wow. I love that too when it's such a different like genre.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't think of this movie when you think about like him going on to do Star Wars, you know? So that's really cool.
No,
I
it
like
was
that.
just it was kind of a weird team that they put together for a funny little film based on kind of like a weird novel that like was again out of the ordinary for the author. Like, it's just
Yeah.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is a movie of like contradictions.
Yeah, and it has, like, kind of a sad backstory, like, I had read like you were saying that he wrote it after a heart attack, but that his son was like, "You're not paying attention to me." And so he, like, wrote this book, and then he died,
Hmm.
and that really hurt his son, and then his son ended up, like, committing suicide
Oh
later.
my gosh.
So it's, like, horribly tragic, and then also on top of all that, you know, because of how this happened, you know, Fleming never got to see the book made. He
Mhm.
had no idea that there's like a movie, you know, so it's like that's really sad, but it's such a cheerful, happy thing to come out of that, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
It's definitely not like the first thing you think of when you think of the movie. That was more of like a shocking fact that I read while I was
well, even
looking stuff up about it.
even like some of the actors don't look back on it very well. Like Heather Ripley, who played Jemima. Um, so her mother came with her to film, and I think they filmed for like 14 months, so a little over a year. And in that time, her father had an affair, and the parents ended up divorcing. And the Heather ended up pretty much blaming the movie for ruining her life.
How weird.
Yeah, and just kind of like tried to distance herself from it from a very, very, very long time.
I wonder if that had something to do with like the era too, because I'm sure divorce was so much more taboo back then. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just,
I don't know.
huh?
It was the
That's
60s.
interesting.
The 60s were pretty crazy.
The '60s were pretty crazy. That is true. Well, so okay, from here, I'm thinking, do you want to talk about any of your favorite scenes from the movie?
Oh my
We've
god.
kind of touched on some of them, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of
let's
them.
go
So,
for it cuz like I love any scene with Robert Helpman as the child catcher. Like
oh yeah, wasn't he like a ballet person? Like
yes,
he did
so
ballet, professional
he was
ballet.
a ballet dancer. That was his background and they got him, so that he could do these dances cuz he's very very light on his feet. You see how he like walks on his toes and just like those jumps and the turns that he does are just magnificent. But
Yeah,
he's so good at playing just this despicable character. Like, I mean, the Baron and Baroness are pretty deplorable, but like the child catcher is just gross. You love to hate
yeah,
him,
he's creepy.
but he's such a nice guy. He was one of the ones who would help like take care of the kids in between takes. And they said sometimes it was hard to get the kids to like look at him with like a straight face or like give scared reactions because they could think about were the funny impressions he did like when the camera wasn't rolling. And
Aw.
I love that. Like what a cool dude to like try and make the kids feel comfortable around him and not just be like, oh, I'm gonna scare these kids and they're gonna be, like terrified of me. But I mean, he
Yeah,
plays
not go method.
such a good evil guy though. Like I love every scene with Child Catcher in it.
Yeah, I liked when he finally caught them in that, like, really complicated thing, that cart
Yes.
that he, like, pulled that string, and I was like, "Oh, that's neat looking." Like, again, there was a lot of little things like that that I thought were really interesting, how they would they were practical effects that looked really good.
Yeah, I mean that was like a Bond trap all in its own.
It really was. Like, I didn't know that watching this movie, but then when I read that, I was like, "Okay, that's making so much make sense now."
Yeah. But no, I think like even the Child Catcher I think was one of Ronald Dahl's additions.
Yeah, and he felt kind of Bond-esque. Yeah, or even like I mean, it also kind of reminded me of like in the Batman 66 show, like all the like wacky villains.
Yes.
It kind of just reminded me of that a little bit. But it was like, he's telling at this point in the movie, he's telling like a fun story. And so yeah, all these characters kind of make sense within the context of that.
Yeah. No, that was a great scene. Well, those were great scenes. And then the doll in a music box scene when they infiltrate when they infiltrate the Baron's birthday party. And we have
Oh yeah.
truly posing as this like automaton doll on top of a music box. And just the song she sings is so pretty, but also kind of haunting because she's singing about
Yes.
being like a person cursed to be a doll on this music box until it's broken by true love's first kiss. And then we're introduced to Dick Van Dyke, who is disguised as like a kind of a marionette doll.
Yeah.
and he's, you know, goofy acting and stuff until he discovers like the music box doll. And then we get her doing the song for the second time, but he does a reprise of Truly Scrumptious because he finally realizes that he's in love with her. And he's not been very
Oh.
nice to her throughout the entire movie. So
Yeah.
it's, you know, Professor Potts singing this. He's not in the character of his like doll anymore, as Truly is singing. And it's just they did such a good job. Like, it was such a great little mashup. Like, I love it, and it's so well choreographed. It's beautiful.
That was probably my favorite part of the movie,
Yeah,
this scene. So I agree. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. It's really different from, it's hard not to compare this to Mary Poppins because they clearly wanted to, right?
yes,
But he's so different from Bert, because now he's sort of this like more introverted, kind of weirdo that makes inventions. Like, I don't know, I vibed with him more, I think, in this movie.
yeah.
And I think it almost like doesn't even occur to him that she could even be remotely interested. So I think that's where a lot of his disdain comes from early on in the film. Is he's kind of like, oh, here's this rich lady that I can't connect with ever, it's impossible. And then she's so kind the whole movie, just repeatedly, until he finally lets her in, and then he realizes like how wonderful she is.
Well, it's cute because Truly falls in love with the kids
Oh yeah.
before she falls in love with Caractacus.
Yeah.
Caractacus.
I know, I'm like, as I was reading the synopsis, I was scared to say his name out loud. It just rolls off their tongue when they say it, but for me, yeah, it
Yeah.
was harder. Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that kind of reminded me a little bit because I had recently done the Apple Dumpling
Uh
Gang,
huh.
and I saw some parallels there too with like, a single guy that ends up with two kids somehow. In this one it's his kids, I'm assuming, but in the other one it's like a guy ends up with two kids and then a woman comes in the picture and she like wants to help with the kids first
Yeah.
before him. And that is kind of a sweet and really different take because like normally when you think of like, I guess, like blended families, it's usually the other way around. They get together and then the kids have to accept it. But there is something interesting about including the vantage point of the kids to where the kids are that active in this decision. They're like, we like her, like pick her.
I
I
think
thought that was pretty cute.
I think part of it is it's just kind of a trope that's not in vogue anymore because it's very like, you know,
Yeah.
the woman is the mother figure. So of course she's attracted to the children first because, oh no, they don't have a mother. Um, and
Yeah.
now I think it's more like, you know, oh, it's um, single dad is going out, he's trying to date again, and they form a relationship, and then it's, uh-oh, now time to meet the kids.
That's very true. And I did notice in the movie, he's like, "There's one thing I can't give them, what they need." And I was thinking, "Yeah, you can,"
Yeah.
but I'm thinking like 2021. Like, yeah, yeah. I think dads are more involved these days
Uh, and
in children's lives.
Grandpa could have been helping out too because Grandpa didn't do anything.
Grandpa's like one step away from the Willy Wonka grandpa.
I
You know.
mean, pretty much. Like he's kind of a terrible grandpa and he's kind of a terrible dad. Like he's not very nice to Craticus, and I mean he likes the kids, but he doesn't really do anything for them.
He's like, "That's not my job."
And
Yeah, and like they're his grandkids, right? I mean,
it
these are
takes him
his
getting
children.
kidnapped and then hanging out with a bunch of old scientists who've been trapped in a dungeon for 40 years to finally be like, oh, you know what? Maybe my son is a decent person. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, like what did he do to deserve that?
I don't
Nothing.
know.
I'm like, it's again, I can't help but keep saying it. I'm like, it's Dick Van Dyke. He's like amazing.
Yeah.
Should be like the perfect son. It's hard for me not to like I said, I almost feel like Dick Van Dyke could float a whole movie for me just because growing up with, Mary Poppins and like the Dick Van Dyke Show I actually watched a lot because it was on Nick at Night, and it's one of like the earliest, I guess, sitcoms that I watch. I mean, obviously, like during that time, Full House came out and I was watching current stuff too.
Yeah.
But I happened to watch this a lot and I just loved him. There's just something really infectious about him. So I'm like, I feel like he could float a whole movie. So yeah, his dad or the grandpa character not liking him seems unbelievable to me.
So wait a second, like you're a huge Dick Van Dyke fan and you hadn't seen this movie. Like
Isn't that weird? In fact, I'm so far removed from this film and I hadn't even thought about it in so long that when I started watching it, I was like, "Oh, good, Dick Van Dyke's in it." Like, I really had no idea. There's so many movies out there. That's my only defense.
so no, like
But
that's
yeah, I just hadn't seen it.
I'm so glad that we ended up doing this one so that you could watch it.
Yes.
Like I love it when I can watch a movie with a person the first time, and even though we didn't really watch it together, it kind of feels like we did. So like
Yeah, no, it
that's
does.
like
And it
such a
was
special
warm
thing.
fuzzies. Yeah, it made me realize that, that I hadn't watched that show in a while, that I hadn't watched him in a while. It made me want to watch Mary Poppins again. And yeah, it definitely, even though I didn't grow up watching this film, it gave me a lot of nostalgia just seeing it. And I keep focusing on him because, to be honest, he's the one that I recognize the most out of the cast,
I mean,
just because I'm not as familiar with the rest of the cast.
he carries a lot of that film on his shoulders.
He
I
does.
mean,
He's in
like,
like almost every scene. That's another thing that, again, dramatically different from Mary Poppins. And that could
yeah.
also be because they couldn't get Julie Andrews. Maybe they pivoted and said, okay, we're going to have to lean more on Dick Van Dyke then.
Well, they couldn't get Julie Andrews, and then they really didn't utilize the kids a lot. Um,
I noticed that too. They seemed a little bit almost like they didn't have to be there. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
they were like, well, I guess we'll put kids in this for just for fun, but like,
Yeah, I think for so that children could like have somebody to look to maybe, but they
yeah,
didn't do a lot. You're right.
because I mean, like, almost our point of view character was Truly because she's like the new one
Mhm.
in the situation. So we're kind of looking at it from her eyes, and that's how we're getting to know like Caractacus and the kids and Grandpa, because it's like only after she meets them do we really get to like actually know them.
Yeah.
And then she kind of like pushes to help with his inventions and like get the meeting with her father to get the toot sweets made and in production, and like she's a really cool character, and I really like Sally Ann Howes. Like I it makes me so sad that she really didn't do that much after this, because again she has a beautiful voice. Like
Yeah, and she looks incredible too. Like, I mean, I don't
yeah,
know. She definitely has that like star quality that you would think she would have a long career to like have the full package.
yeah, no, and just she's so much fun. She can be like silly and flustered, but then like very caring, all like smushed together. Like
Yeah.
she puts together a very dimensional character, instead of playing it kind of flat, which is I think what happens sometimes when people who mainly do theater kind of move into film, because they're
Mhm.
used to
Like they
playing
have
like
trouble with subtlety.
yeah, they're playing like one character so big so that the people in the back of the balcony can see it, that they lose some of that nuance. And she did a great job bringing Truly to life on the screen. Like I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. And then I know I keep saying this, but I really liked her dresses too.
Oh no,
Like
they were
I
super cute,
love
and the
them.
hats.
Yes. Oh man, I loved the hats too. Yeah, I'm always gonna notice stuff like that in movies. So
No,
I
they're
loved all their outfits. I almost felt like this movie maybe was almost too for theater people. Does that make sense? Like, if you appreciate theater and performance, you're more invested than like an average viewer would be almost.
maybe I could totally see that. Like for adults, yes. Like for kids, I
Yeah.
think it's just kind of a goofy, fun. I mean, it's a long movie. It's a long movie for a kid to sit
Oh
through, but
yeah,
I
it has
mean,
an intermission. That
yeah,
part surprised me. I was like, "Wait, what?" I was like,
I
"Intermission?
mean, it's
Oh,
almost three
that's
hours long.
yeah, it's like yeah, it's at least 2.5 hours." But yeah, when it came up to the intermission time, I was like, "Oh, so this is like a real musical, like a legit older, long film where there's an intermission." I haven't
And
seen one of those in a while.
I love how they did like almost a James Bond thing where like the intermission was a cliffhanger. But like
Yeah.
almost a literal cliffhanger. Wink wink.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, "Time for a little break."
Yeah. Go get some popcorn and some soda from the lobby.
Oh man, yeah, that makes me miss doing stuff like that. I've done it a little bit in the past couple of months, but not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did make me miss like seeing musicals live too, because I feel like
Yes.
this movie has that quality where it's like, I mean, it's definitely a movie, and you talked about the acting is more layered than a performance that's from far away, but
Mhm.
I don't know, there was something about it that like really, like I said, I felt like all the detail and the costumes and the sets and everything, it really like reminded me of that experience a lot more.
Oh yeah. No, like I can see why they they definitely wanted to bring this to Broadway and the West End
Yeah.
because I mean it has all of the makings. Just throw in a few more songs and bada bing bada boom. Like it's got all the ups and downs, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and like sometimes the scenes really feel like they're for the songs in a way.
Hmm.
Kind of like the songs are the main feature and the scenes kind of like when you were saying like the plot's a little bit like it's like it is kind of more focused on those big visual moments
It
than
it
the
does
other
feel a
stuff,
lot
which
like
lends itself to musical.
the
Yeah.
Sherman Brothers looked at an outline, wrote the music, and then they were like, okay, we're gonna write some story around this incredible music because it's a lot of fun. Like I don't know if they're as memorable as like some Disney songs, but dang, they're catchy. Like Toot Sweets is just fun and it's kind of easy to sing. It's not a very hard song. Um, and it's just kind of silly, Toot Sweets.
Yeah.
um, Goodness. And then like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is fun to sing. My sister and I used to run around singing that, and we'd be in the car singing it.
I
Um,
swear, this is why I thought it was Disney. I swear that it was on some kind of sing-along VHS that I had. But I guess it can't be. Do you remember those like old Disney like
yes.
sing-along videos? I had like a ton of them. I can't, my poor parents, I'm sure I drove them insane, but I, I would like a lot of those songs that I would sing to myself because I'm an only child. I didn't even have the movies. Like, that was the closest to seeing some of the films
Oh
that
wow.
I got.
Yeah.
Because the Disney Vault's always been a thing. So,
Hmm.
like, they didn't have all their movies on VHS, and so I would, sing all the songs, and I really thought this movie had some songs like that, unless I had another like, an off-brand where, like, if United Artists came out with their own, like, rival sing-along, which is possible, but, man, I just miss stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could sit around and sing all day, but I don't know how Nick would feel about that. But, yeah, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how I saw this movie, if I saw it someday.
It's
It's a
hidden
mystery.
deep within the recesses of your mind, somewhere
Yeah,
in
there's
Bulgaria.
yes, yes. For sure.
Oh my god. Oh, and then that. Speaking of that, that's also just such a fun scene. The "You're my little choochie face."
Oh, yeah.
It's just so weird. So like, if you haven't seen the movie, like the Baron does not like the Baroness. Like he does not want to be married to her anymore. But I guess they can't get divorced, so he's constantly trying to kill her. And she is just oblivious to it. She just, I guess, she just assumes it's a bunch of silly accidents. So she's like flouncing around in braided pigtails and like lingerie and
Yeah.
heels
That's what I was saying. I was
in their
surprised at that
bedroom
part.
singing this song about like pet names as like he's dropping chandeliers and trying to like hit her with an axe and like sending her down a trap door. And it as a kid you just think it's funny because you're like hee hee chutchy face. And then you're an adult and you're like, oh well she's wearing like actually that's kind of a cute little corset.
Yeah, I was like, it was a cute outfit.
It was a really cute
But
outfit.
it just seemed kind of out of left field for like a kids movie then. I mean, now I feel like it wouldn't be as big of a deal, but
Yeah.
just for the time, I thought it was surprising.
And it's so funny. And they're just singing these nonsensical lyrics like, you're my little choochie face, my oochie woochie choochie little choochie face. Like, what even is that?
Yeah, that one didn't have a ton of lyrics.
No, it was just silliness. But
Yeah.
again, the whole fantasy part of the movie was a bunch of fun. And I guess it wasn't even supposed to be fantasy. It was supposed to be like played straight, like that actually happened. And it was a last minute editing decision to turn it into a fantasy.
Okay.
So they added in kind of like some extra sound snippets and like a few effects to make it look, you know, kind of like a dream thing.
Mhm.
And that's how it turned into the story because in the book, you know, all like not that exact same stuff, but a similar situation happened and we find out that, you know, like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is alive. Um, and I guess they decided that, you know, that was just going to be too much, even though they were, you know, trying to copy a movie about a nanny that flies around on an
Yeah, I was gonna
umbrella, you
say,
know?
when you really think about Mary Poppins, it doesn't make a lot of sense either. But I guess, like, because it's so ingrained in, like, American culture at this point and British culture, obviously, but,
Yeah.
because it's so ingrained for us in pop culture, it's like we just accept it,
Yeah.
you know? There's also a part of the movie where they jump into chalk drawings and,
Hmm.
you know, like, you're just like, "Okay." Like, but, yeah, it's funny when you watch something else that kinda has those same elements, I guess I can see why they're like, "Oh, that's too strange." But it's really not. It's all kind of relative, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's, I don't know. I just, this movie, like watching it again recently, just brought back so many memories. Like I thought I had it on DVD and I couldn't find it. So I don't know if my sister stole it, which is possible. Ashley, if you're listening to this, I'm on to you. Um, but
That'll be the cliffhanger of this episode if you
exactly.
get that DVD back.
No, I ended up, I bought it on Blu-ray so that I'd have it and I wouldn't have to like
Oh,
rent it.
nice. Did you get it on like on Amazon or how did you?
I got it from Barnes and Noble,
Oh, wow.
because Barnes and Noble was also the only place that had Summer Wars for not like $70.
So, yeah, so, a little tangent here. Ty and I went back and forth. This is like our third movie choice
Yes.
because you just happen to pick movie, and this is something that's happening in streaming, right? I mean, it's been a problem since streaming started, I
Yeah.
feel like, is you used to just go buy a DVD, somebody got the rights to it, you go get it. Now it's hard to find stuff. Like I couldn't find the stream. I couldn't even find. I rented Chitty Chitty Bang Bang
Hmm.
for $3.99, but the other movies I couldn't even find. I was really surprised. It feels like that happens a lot with anime though.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden it's gone forever, and you're like, what? No.
Well,
Like when you try to recommend something to someone, and they're like, well, how do I watch it? And I'm like, spend $30 and hope that you like it.
pretty much. And it's weird
You
because
know,
Summer Wars was such a big title for Funimation and I don't even think it's on their
it's
streaming
weird.
site.
That's so strange. Yeah, I don't think I don't have the Funimation streaming service, so that could be part of it. I think I have Crunchyroll,
Hmm.
and then like Hulu and Netflix, and then of course like iTunes. But
Yeah.
it was on Vudu, I think. But then when I went to try to rent it, it went, you can't rent this on Apple, and I was like, what? It's so complicated. I don't understand. But
I don't get
yeah.
it either, but I had that one on Blu-ray too at one point and I have not been able to find it So I was like, well, I'll just get it again. And then on Amazon, it's like
Okay.
$70 for the Blu-ray. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe not. And then I found Barnes and Noble has a bunch of kind of like hard to find Blu-rays and DVDs for really good prices. So
Okay.
if you guys are
I'm gonna
having
keep
trouble
that.
finding movies, go to Barnes and Noble. Maybe it's because nobody buys stuff at Barnes and Noble anymore, so they just have it sitting there. I don't know.
My gosh. Yeah, see, if we had more time, I would have like tried harder, to find it. And like with I can't remember what movie it was, but there's even been times where guests like send me movies because they're like, I want you to cover this, and they just mail it to me. Or I go buy it, and look around. I went to a movie trading company and they didn't have it there, so
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it was
Yeah, it's
just it was
interesting, but I'm gonna keep that tip in my back pocket.
I think
That's
it
really
was a
cool.
limited release, but
Mm.
well, you might just have to come over and watch it, and we'll
Yeah,
we'll
there
have
you
a
go.
night.
That's another option for sure, for sure.
Again, I told you
That
like
would be fun. I never get to do that, so that
movies
would be fun.
movies are such a fun way to connect with people. It's kind of like
100%.
you find something that you really enjoy, and then you get to share it with somebody, and even if they don't love it, you still got to spend time with that person. And
Mhm.
like it's just such a special connection. And then like that's always a way to bring up like a memory, like, oh man, do you remember that time that we watched Chitty Chitty Bang Bang together, and then we had like a popcorn fight, and then afterwards my roommate got home like super wasted. Like, it's such a cool way to like connect. And then again, if like somebody loves the movie that you shared with them, like that's just another thing that y'all have in common. Like movies are
100%.
super cool like that.
I completely agree. And you feel like you're in this like exclusive club
Yeah.
sometimes. It's like I've seen that.
Yeah, especially when
Cuz
it's like
like
some
sometimes not
weird
everyone's seen it.
movie.
Yeah, and I love yeah, like I said, I love that. Like I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was like Marcus. It might have been Pump Up the Volume. I don't remember. But he sent me a movie. It just arrived in the mail where he's like, "Can I get your address?" I'm like, "Okay." And then he sent it and he's like, "Okay, this is what we're going to talk about." And I'm like, "I love your drive here." like like you didn't ask, you just sent it and you're like, "This is what we're doing." And I was like, "One, okay, let's do it." And it was a fun episode. So, yeah, yeah, that would be
Well,
cool.
when you asked to do this
Um
one, I was like, it's summer, and I wanted to do like kind of summery feeling movies. And like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang just has, I mean, they spend time at the beach.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah.
kids are being truant from school, but they're home, so it feels like summer break.
And honestly, like, with everything that's going on right now and the news is just, just
Terrible.
constant bad news. And it was just nice to like take a break and watch something that's like joyful for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, kind of just
So
take a breath and lose yourself in something kind of just nonsensical and fun. And later you find yourself humming it and maybe taking your mind off of stuff for just a little bit longer.
I was going to mention the other way that I remember this movie is because of specifically because of that scene in Ace Ventura 2 when he sings Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in the car. Like I started singing it that way to Nick. He's like, "What?" He's like, "I don't even know what the song is," and I sang it like Jim Carrey, and then he was like, "What are you talking about?" And as I sang it to him, he's like, "Okay, now I remember that scene." And then I played the scene for him on YouTube,
That is
and then I
amazing.
played the real song for him after that. But yeah, I think of Jim Carrey singing it.
Like,
And it's pretty similar. Like I feel like he makes like Dick Van Dyke faces as he's doing it too. So I don't know, it's funny.
actually, now that I think about it, they do look kind of similar too.
Yeah, he could have. There's some alternate universe where he could have you know had a version of this, but I don't know. But yeah, I always think of that scene in the movie. It's like impossible when I think of this title to not think of him singing it.
The cultural impact of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah, it's widespread
God.
for sure. Were there any other scenes that we haven't touched on yet that you wanted to chat through?
Oh my goodness. I think those are like the big ones. I love, the whole Thing at the Candy Factory. That was a lot of fun. I talked about that. Yeah. Did you have any other than maybe like the doll on a music box? What do you say like your second favorite scene was?
I think the number that he does with the one that was, like, very difficult with the pulls,
Oh, the old
um
bamboo.
yeah, yeah, that was a really that was, like, fun to watch, it kinda reminded me of, like, watching, like, Singing in the Rain or something, just where you see a musical number where you're like, "That looks really tough and impressive."
Yes. And like if you watch it closely, you can see that his kicks aren't quite as high as everybody else. But again,
Yeah,
these
he's,
are
like, in pain.
he's like doing this as a 40 something and they're all like probably between 19 and 22.
Yeah, I sympathize with that. I mean, I've never danced like that, but even if I just do like, I don't know, a workout DVD or something,
Hmm.
and they do like a million burpees, I'm like, I can't do that. I physically can't. There's a point where you stop being able to do some of that stuff, I think. The other thing that I wanted to mention was to talk a little bit about the car again, because I feel like I glossed over that or I couldn't remember the name of the guy. So I'm going to pull that up really quick. The fictional character of inventor Cradicus Potts was reminiscent of Roland Emmett, who worked on the technical aspects of the film, and it drew cartoons for Punch magazine in the 40s and 50s, and rose to fame in the 51 Festival of Britain, where he created a real-life version of his cartoon far teetering in Oyster Creek Railway. The miniature railway was ridden by more than 2 million people at Battersea Park that year, and his 1973 powered musical clock, the Aqua Horological Tintinnabulator, can still be seen in Nottingham. And for the film, he designed a series of machines, including the Humbug Major Sweep Machine, Clockwork Lullaby, the Little Dragon Carpet Sweeper, and Hot Air Rocking Chair.
So
So he made a bunch of crazy stuff,
I think
and
that's who I was thinking of
yeah,
earlier and I was talking about when you mentioned
yeah.
car. That's who I was
I
thinking
was
of.
yeah. I think so. That's why I was like, I want to come back to that because I
Yes.
remember, yeah. And then one of the most memorable things is the breakfast robot. Um,
Yes, the
which
sausage and
yeah,
eggs.
yeah. And so yeah, I don't know. That was fun. But I wanted to go back and talk about him since he kind of inspired the character and also made the stuff in the film. So
And then it was
it was like working stuff, kind of.
Ken
Yeah,
Adam
pretty
did the
close.
car.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
We figured it out. Sometimes, when you're like it's in the moment, you're like, I had notes somewhere.
Somewhere.
So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. I edit for a reason, so I'll make sure that we have it in there. Um, but yeah, I think those were the highlights of the film for sure. But I enjoyed watching it. I kind of tried to look for some behind the scenes stuff, and I didn't find a ton, but I did find a lot of articles written about it. So there's a lot of stuff out there about some fun facts and things like that if you want to hear more about the film. This brings me to my last couple of questions then. Number one, if you could sum up what we've been talking about, what is it about this movie that keeps you coming back to it?
The big thing is nostalgia. Like
Mm,
you watch this movie and it takes you right back to being a kid playing make believe, just kind of running wild and having fun, and just the music is really great and really fun and easy to connect to.
yeah, I think. Well, as someone that like absolutely loves Mary Poppins, and I really like Bedknobs and Broomsticks too. I tried to watch that as an adult, and it's a little long. Like some of the scenes are a little long. But anyway, that era of watching stuff like that, this reminds me of that a lot.
Yeah.
So, um, and it really, I kept thinking watching it that it reminds me of like the kind of movie I would put on if I was having like a bad day. Um, I have said before on the podcast that I like to watch like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Singing in the Rain, stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's like, okay, I'm having a bad day. I want to just be inundated with like happiness and music and dancing. And I feel like this is a movie that does that. Um, now, how do you pitch this to someone that hasn't seen it before, though?
Ooh, how would I pitch it to somebody who's never seen it? I would just say, do you want to see like a crazy awesome big budget musical film based on a book written by the guy who wrote all of the Bond novels, adapted into a screenplay by the guy who wrote Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, The
Oh, that's
BFG,
right. Yeah.
um, and The Witches, starring Dick Van Dyke, Benny Hill. Like just the talent is just immense. I mean, the directors and production were notable on their own, but I really think the heart of this movie is the music and the
Hmm.
actors and just the writing team that made it so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't sell it better than that. So, a few years ago, I remember I had a friend that was saying he showed him like a parody of a Mary Poppins trailer, and it was like called Scary Mary, and someone had edited it to look
Uh
scary.
huh.
And then his after he played it, he's like, "Isn't that funny?" And his brother was like, "I don't get it." And he was like, he realized he had never seen Mary Poppins,
Oh my god.
and so he was just like, "Okay, scary trailer, okay," and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" And so, for a while, I feel like movies like this or like Mary Poppins, they kind of fell out of vogue, I guess. Like kids weren't necessarily watching it the way that we did growing up.
Yeah.
But they did make that sequel that it didn't do great, but I bet it still got a lot of people interested in that older movie again.
Hmm.
So that's good. But yeah, if you're interested in something like that, then this is like another film from around that time that you could watch. So that would be my pitch. That
Yes.
was my long pitch. Um, well, Ty, thank you so much for coming back on and for talking about this movie. Thank you for introducing me to the movie and teaching me so much about it. I really appreciate it. And where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Deadly Blonde, and there's an E at the end of that. Um,
That's kind of Bondish. Have you ever thought about that?
just a little bit, just a
James
little bit.
Bondish.
Or also Instagram, it's at the Deadly Blonde, no E at the end of it for that one.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on and hope to have you back soon.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. These are always a lot of fun.